Evening. Welcome, friends. Welcome, brothers and sisters. Welcome, comrades. And a very happy Christmas Eve. Happy holidays. Happy Kwanzaa. Whatever winter festival you may be celebrating. Happy solstice. A deep and profound love from my family to yours. The universal essence of whatever is in this universe feels like we're a little bit closer together. And as always, it's wonderful to be talking with you all about the future, the wonderful and beautiful future of socialism. What a great time it is to be alive when we can make a difference. We can do something and invest in something bigger than ourselves. We can devote a portion of our efforts to the greatest task of mankind, to liberate mankind, to push us to a better future and a better tomorrow. And that is the cause of socialism. And that is what it means to be on the left. It does not mean we're trying to go back to a hunter-gatherer society where life was horrible and hierarchical. It does not mean that we're going to push the latest liberal issue on the working class until they completely get it right or aren't allowed in our small leftist circles. It means we're going to improve the material conditions, the material machines, the infrastructure. Now we have roads and the industrial factory system and the computer, and this all affects our lives. And it goes into the system of capitalism, a system where we compete against each other for crumbs and wages. The system of imperialism, where a group of banking and oil oligarchs rob us blind here and rob the world blind. If we can take hold of the society, plan it for our interest, mass mobilize the people that are hurting from the contradictions, class oppression, national oppression. Organize the wonderful and beautiful masses of the people that we love to take power so we can break through the irrationality, the waste, the backwardsness of this imperialist system, regardless of what their politicians say and their media bombards us with. We know it's a lie. Instead of escaping it through robust church services and consumer groups and video games and drugs, we look at the reality. We understand the reality. We use a scientific method to understand reality. We build power and we change it for the better. That is the beautiful dream and the process that is inevitable. But we must bring forth the coming quicker of the future of socialism. I'm absolutely happy to be here with you guys tonight. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Cutie, Neo Longest 101. Here in Italy is already Christmas, so Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Neo Longest, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to all. Give me a second. I'm going to get up on the Facebook and see if this is going live on the Facebook right quick. Y'all want to get in the comments, please share this out. Invite your friends. We hit 600 subscribers. Let's try to make that 700. Let's try to grow this channel and make it bigger and make this movement bigger. I always there's a brother who's having some trouble right now. Shout out to Joey Villarreal, a Marxist, Leninist, Maoist, communist, Chicano nationalist out in Aslan. I know he was, I believe from online sources, that he was pestered by the police. He had one of his friends beat up by the police for handing out leaflets. I believe he was detained. And he's going through some stuff right now. So shout out the Villarreal. His book, Chicano Power, is absolutely a brilliant understanding on a very important issue. The scientifically understood Chicano nation of the Southwest is a powerful force for progress and revolution, and one of the main contradictions of the United States. And I have deep love for anybody leader involved or in that struggle. And one of his key concepts is ideology is key for Aslan to be free. And I believe I like that rhyme, and I think it's true. Ideology is key for the working class and all oppressed nations to be free. And that's what we're here spreading today with friends and comrades alike. Comrade Rise, the contradiction between workers and capitalism is fundamentally very antagonistic. This is why our key to liberation is socialism and the overthrow of capitalism. Spot on. A does not equal A. First, you have a thesis. The contradictions create an antithesis. And then through a struggle, you have a synthesis. Capitalism, with the class and capitalism, imperialism specifically, and a very monopolized, a super monopolized form that I don't even think Lenin could have predicted, gives the contradiction of class oppression and national oppression, and is those contradictions, those people that will struggle and bring about the new age of socialism. Great comment, Comrade Rise. Darth Buddha, happy holidays. Tank Gang 1917. I was going to look up on, see if I'm live here. I am live on the Facebook. I'm live on the YouTube. I'm ready to have a great and wonderful chat with all of you. I'm going to put in a test comment. See if my Facebook comments are coming through. I looked at that. Everything's good. So if you're watching this on YouTube, share it on the Facebook, share it on the Twitter, get this out there, make this a bigger conversation. We're going to get right into the topic today. I am feeling a little bit out of it and a little bit depressed. Well, first of all, I'll tell you my story. A little bit of a labor update on my part. And if you watch Working Class Revolt with David Fox, I recommend everyone subscribe to David Fox on YouTube. Great, strong, powerful, courageous comrade and leader of the Australian labor movement. Works with a number of companies and have very good leadership because his leadership is informed by scientific socialism. And he uses the fight for workers' power. Use the fight for workers' power, maybe even the fight for reforms at times, to be amongst the masses. And then amongst the masses, in this fight, you can use that to build schools for the revolution. And that's exactly what brother and comrade David Fox is doing. And his latest video is one of the more inspiring ones. You can look at I shared that video. You can subscribe to David Fox on YouTube. You can also I shared it out early this week. If you have not liked my Facebook group, Dust James Anti-Imperialist America on Facebook, please like the Facebook group. I'm going live there. Shout out to comrade David Fox. Okay, and I do a weekly show. We're not going to do our weekly show tomorrow. We've been doing it Saturdays. We're actually going to skip this Saturday. This will be my last live. I figured I told my wife I wasn't going to be right during Christmas unless I did a live before Christmas. So I'm doing this Christmas Eve live because I would be thinking, what am I going to say? I'd be all during Christmas. I'd be thinking, what am I going to say in my live? What am I going to say in my live? So to get that out of the way and take a little bit of break from the lives and be with my family for Christmas, I decided I'm doing this live right now. And this Saturday, we will not be doing a working class revolt with David Fox. That is going to be postponed to the next week. I believe we're trying to schedule a co-host from England, which is kind of hard because that's 3 different time zones. I think Comrade David Fox said he was going to be up pretty late to be able to get our comrade from England. That's coming up, not this week, but next Saturday, more than likely. But if you watch Working Class Revolt that I do weekly with David Fox, the format of that show is following an old tradition of a communist work meeting. And a lot of communist work meetings, you start with a news update on the international situation from a proletarian, anti-imperialist perspective. And you have a labor update on how are your conditions in the workplace and what we can do as a collective to fix those issues. And even if we don't have the power to fix those issues, we should at least talk about those issues. And I recently had some issues transitioning, trying to get off the road. I was with a company. I'll just go ahead and give you a little bit of my own labor update, the struggles I've been having. I think it was several months back. I don't know, it was 2 or 3 months. I decided to get off the road. I lived in this crappy trailer for like 4 years, and I finally saved up with the COVID relief to purchase a house. And then once I saved up the down payment, which took a long time, I was working my ass off. I was working 80 to 100 hours a week. I was home only a day and a half. I go back as a hard life. I was making up and I was trying to make money to save up for a house. Once I got my house, it's like, I don't need to be saving up this money. I'll take a pay cut to get off this road to be with my son. And I did that. And I'm not really good for looking for jobs. And I actually had a trainee find me a job. Somebody I was training to drive trucks. Was looking around at jobs, said, hey, look for me a job, look for a local job. He found his job. And we didn't really look at the reputation of the company. Always look at the reputation of the company. I just looked on there what the deal was. It said you would get paid this much. I know you're not supposed to believe recruiters, but I fell for it. It said you're going to get paid this much and you're going to be home this much. I was like, wow, that sounds great. So I went ahead and got on it. I forgot to ask if they had health insurance. Luckily, they did have health insurance, or I would have had to quit it, but I didn't ask how much that health insurance was. And that insurance was over $350 a week for me and my family. And when you're only making, maybe $1,000 a week, that's a lot of money. $300 a week. That's a good 30% of your income. 30% of your income. And the so-called social democracies of Europe or any other industrial, I hate the fucking language, industrialized. It is an industrialized country, imperialist country. Any other country in the imperialist bloc. That's the language we should start using. It is the Western bloc that allows. Actually, there's an image I gotta download to talk about this. We shouldn't be using industrialized country. We shouldn't be using join the rest of industrial world. We should say the imperialist bloc and the oppressed global south. And those are the two camps. There's leaders within the anti-imperialist movement. But I mean, that's really the two camps. I'm going to get an image and pull it up on the screen for you so I can describe this. So I don't think we should. So like the rest of the, if we were going to be like the rest of the imperialist bloc that has Medicare for all, single payer, social, these are different things. Like Medicare for all is like government provided insurance for everybody. And then socialized medicine would be the hospitals would actually be owned by the people. Socialized medicine is even better than single payer or Medicare for all. But even Medicare for all would get rid of so much waste. And Medicare for all, I would only have to pay maybe 8-9% of my income to go to healthcare. I'm paying 30% of my income to go to healthcare. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So, and I got hired on. I guess I'll be looking for this meme to pull up while I'm talking. So just give me a minute. Talk with each other in the comments. Shout out to Lincolnite Yankee, Arctic Angel, great friends of the show, and Evan, howdy from Portland. Right on. And right there it says Arctic Angel, hello everyone. That's how I like that. When you get on my page, you don't just talk to me in the comments. I mean, I'm reading the comments, but when you're talking to everybody in the comments, you put a comment, everybody reads that comment. So talk to each other and form communities with each other through the comments. If my strong working class revolutionary anti-imperialism drags you to me, I want you to get connected with each other. I want you guys to start interviewing each other and starting your own shows and making the connections and building this movement together. I mean, I'm only one person taking a little bit of my time out from my family to try to spread this stuff. It's gonna take thousands upon thousands, if not millions of us to actually get things done. And that's absolutely right. Brendan Slack, industrial nations is factually correct, but passive language is basically a lie of omission. Yes, you say industrialized nations, it makes it sound because they're developed, that's why they have their standard of living. And that's untrue. They're allowed to be industrialized because they don't allow the global South to develop. So they can keep the global South as resource colonies and extract. There is no poor nations in this world. There's rich nations that the imperialists exploit. And this government and both its parties, Democrats and Republicans, are capable of some of the greatest or guilty of some of the greatest crimes ever committed in human existence. Genocides, wars, starvation, chaos. And all the maladies that come with those problems are a direct result of imperialism led by U.S. imperialism. It is the imperialist bloc, the exploiter nations. And that's exactly right. It is a lie by omission just to say industrialized countries, say imperialist countries, say oppressor countries, say colonizing countries. If you have any love for humanity and righteousness, speak truth with your words and have a beautiful and have an understanding of what's going on, and don't allow the empire to lie to you or to lie to your community or to lie to your family. Understand this truth and speak loudly the truth. I'm going to pull up that meme. There you go. Let me, if I can get this over here. Yep. Looks like I sent it to it's this whole process. I usually get a few images right before I started, but I didn't really get into it. So to upload it here. Right on. Get good stuff in the comments. See if it showed up. Yes, it did. Open. All right. So there's a specific meme I want to show y'all, and this really goes on to show what exactly is the imperialist bloc. And I think I'll show it better. There we go. Okay, so it's hard to read this map. This map right here, if I'll read the words to you. UN General Assembly resolution on combating the glorification of Nazism, neo-Nazism, contemporary forms of racism, radical racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance. So all the nations of the world, the UN is an imperialist body, but people, third world countries like Cuba and people like Malcolm X have gone to the UN to point out hypocrisy. That's an avenue that people can go in. But the UN was trying to pass a resolution to go against Nazism, to go against neo-Nazism, to stand against racism, to stand against racial discrimination, against xenophobia. And some countries don't think that's a good idea. There was only 2 countries that outright said, oh, we don't need to fight fascism. And those countries are the United States and the Ukraine. The United States and the Ukraine are the ones that voted against fighting against fascism. And then you have those who abstained. Almost the entire world voted in favor of the UN resisting fascism. United States and Ukraine voted in favor. And this is interesting. Groups like, I'm going to call them out, the RCP, and all these groups, Cornel West, said you have to vote for Biden because Trump is a fascist. All right, but if you look at the impeachment of Trump, was for almost not giving weapons to the Ukraine. The Ukrainian government is basically controlled by neo-Nazis. Neo-Nazis that were installed in a coup that the Obama Biden administration put into power. The Obama Biden administration put neo-Nazis into power. All right, that's not even the beginning of it. You continue with the impeachment. Why was Trump impeached for the most part? He was impeached for almost not buying weapons for that neo-Nazi government. He was attacked by the Democrats and the liberals, the so-called left wing of the imperialists, the worst enemy humanity has ever faced, the strongest section with the more diverse and massive voting bloc than the Republicans. The Republicans stay in power through gerrymandering and the Electoral College. More of the masses have been convinced to support the Democrats and defend the Democrats. When the Democrats are out here putting neo-Nazis in the power and then impeaching purely on political basis political rivals for not fully supporting those neo-Nazis. And you're telling me I got to vote for the supporters of neo-Nazis so I can fight against fascism? That is absolutely and utterly ridiculous. If you have any understanding of geopolitics, you're not going to vote Democrats to fight against Nazism when they're sitting there putting them in the power. So this is the imperialist bloc. You see, okay, you look at all these yellow countries. These are the yellow countries that have better social programs and stuff like that, but they benefit from trade created by the political economic system of imperialism. They engage in trade that is made possible by the imperialist system, which the U.S. uses its big military to advance and to continue. I mean, there's a few stages. First, they attack them diplomatically, then they sabotage them outright, then they put sanctions that literally kill people, sanctions that are an act of war, and then they use sabotage, they rig elections. And if all of that doesn't work, they use their most expensive form, which is invasion. to make sure that country is in line and exploited and doesn't develop and become a rival to the economic system of the imperialist bloc. And because the United States has to have the poverty draft, because the United States, the elite are so arrogant, they don't believe they need a labor aristocracy. They don't believe they need a social democracy to keep us in tune. They have the mass propaganda machine, the police state, to keep us in line and to keep their profits. And this little bit of buffer where they can move jobs whenever we decide to, if we ever decide to strike, they'll actually move jobs to places that have better unions just to crush our strike. So here's the rest of the imperialist bloc. Canada, Europe, most of Europe now. I would say most of the former Soviet nations, except Belarus was the last one, which they're trying to overthrow. Most of the Eastern European countries, former Soviet bloc, have joined the fascist NATO alliance, NATO imperialist alliance against one of the countries in the anti-imperialist bloc, Russia. Yes, Russia is capitalist, but they're firmly within the anti-imperialist bloc. It is Russia that stabilized oil in Venezuela. I mean, it's Iran that built supermarkets in Venezuela. It's Chinese loans that allowed Bolivia to grow 3 times faster. I mean, sorry, China has gone 3 times faster than the United States through planning. But it was low-interest Chinese loans that allowed Morales, Bolivia, to be the fastest-growing economy in South America. This is the bloc. This is the buildup of the world. So these countries in the yellow that abstain from fascism, they abstain from opposing fascism. They abstained from opposing fascism. So you had the U.S. and Ukraine are the anti-fascists. And then you have the anti-fascist, we're not in favor of anti-fascism, the European bloc, these Western countries, Australia, and and it's just part of a buffer. They're exactly like the United States. In the United States, the corporate Democrats are outright warmongers, even more so than the Republicans at times. They're outright suppression of healthcare. And then you got these so-called social Dems, sheepdog imperialists, as I call them. Their sole purpose is to convince us to continue to support the system that's destroying our lives and destroying the entire world. That's the entire purpose of Bernie Sanders, AOC, the entire squad. That is their entire purpose. Absolutely no hope in them whatsoever. Their job is to convince us to support our enemies. And they talk about universal health care, but when it comes push to shove, as Jimmy Dore showed, they're not about getting us any bit of health care or anything. They're with this recent stimulus check. Might I know that this recent stimulus check was actually a National Defense Authorization Bill. Horrible things have happened with National Defense Authorization bills. Remember, Obama took away our civil liberties and rights by attaching a provision that made, if they suspected you a terrorist, which is so vague, it could be anything or any reason, they can murder you or detain you indefinitely. That was attached to a National Defense Authorization Act. Was another thing that was attached to the National Defense Authorization Act. The National Defense Authorization Act had the DREAM Act attached to it back in the day. The DREAM Act, which was arguably a better version of the current deferred actions that Obama did with the executive order. But the DREAM Act was written by the Pentagon. And you had undocumented people pushing to get a bill that was written by the Pentagon to get one of the most exploited people, the children of undocumented workers, to join the military, to fight for the system, to kill fellow poor black and brown people in other countries to keep those countries poor. Absolutely disgusting. I had a whole struggle with the DREAM movement. I came out against the DREAM Act because I knew it was a funnel to get the most oppressed people to join the U.S. military, the same U.S. military that trained the people that destroyed countries like El Salvador, that trained the coup makers. And in many times, it was outright the United States that created the refugees. People killing themselves. Border patrol shooting, recent migrant border patrol shooting themselves, shooting people of their own race and their own nation in the same position for a paycheck. It's absolutely disturbing the way they convince working class and people of oppressed nations, super exploited people, to support the system that's oppressing all of us. But the National Defense Authorization Act, in reality, is the biggest military budget in human history. And that's what they attach. Relief in the middle of a crisis, relief in the middle of a pandemic, relief in the middle of a routine capitalist crisis. Routine, not in the sense that it's not bad, but routine, and this happens every 10 years, and they know it. We still haven't recovered from 2008 crisis, and every time they never let a good crisis go by. They use crisis to the full extent to enrich the rich, to make the rich richer and make the poor poorer. And that's why in the crisis, Amazon has made billions of dollars. And it's been in the CARES Act, which was a bailout of the rich. They gave us a measly $1,200, and they gave over $1 trillion to our enemies, the bourgeoisie, the capitalists, the Silicon Valley fascists that don't let us stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in Iran on media platforms. I should be getting off that ban in 7 days, and everybody who's liking everybody who's watching this on Facebook via the Dust James Anti-Imperialist America page, in 7 days, I'm going to go back on Facebook to my regular page. So please follow me on Facebook. Just Dust James. I have a few friendship slots. I have 500 more. I have 4,500 friends. I got 500 friendship slots left on there. So just send me a friend request. I accept almost all friend requests from legitimate comrades, legitimate profiles. I should be going back live on my regular page. Or you can always go to my YouTube, and it looks good when people get on the YouTube. So what I'm saying is, this is the anti-imperialist bloc. So just as the sheepdogs are used to convince working people in oppressed nations to support the horrific war criminal imperialist party that keeps us poor, and for immigrants, it creates the economic crisis that forces people in the first place. So essentially, they're creating more refugees by supporting these political parties that support these wars and support these economic systems, these unjust trade deals. So that is used. They're sheepdogs. Sheepdogs, that's what that term means. They're nothing more than imperialist sheepdogs. Bernie Sanders, the squad, AOC, imperialist Senate sheepdogs, enemy of the people. Learn it, understand it, say it, and say it loudly, and say it again. There's a lot of ignorance going on out here. And we can understand these things. I'm a regular truck driver, working class, trying to get my mortgage paid. If I can understand these things, you can understand these things. So just as they use them as sheepdogs, they use the rest of Europe, and they use Australia, and they maintain a labor aristocracy that's loyal to the entire imperialist bloc, whose leaders in the UN are allowed to abstain from socialism. You think what about these countries where people are in poverty and fascism is a real threat, imperialism a real threat? How do you think their people would respond if they didn't vote in the UN to oppose fascism? But in this built up buffer zone of the imperialist bloc, so it serves a key purpose. Everything that exists in our society exists because of the dominant power of imperialism. And if it exists, more than likely, it is being used somehow to benefit the imperialist. Or if it didn't, it's either that force, like the anti-imperialist countries or revolutionary organizations, they are being actively suppressed by the imperialist bloc. If you are not being actively suppressed by the imperialist bloc, then you are being used and manipulated to support the imperialist bloc. That's absolutely how powerful monopolized power of these few oil banking cartels are, tied with a few large-scale manufacturers, mostly oil banking. That is the enemy. That is the imperial. This right here, the European bloc, is not better morally than people in the United States who aren't allowed to have a labor aristocracy because they're so confident and arrogant in their power system. They don't think they need it. They have better schools, but those better schools are largely there to maintain the system of capitalism and imperialism. And I get on here with a lot of these Euro communists looking down on me being a truck driver from the South. I understand the imperialist system better than they do because they are loyal to their bourgeois, imperialist, so-called social democratic government that maintains them as a buffer between the imperialist bloc and the global South to maintain the most disgusting system that has ever happened or has ever existed in human history. Fuck the Euro socialists. Fuck the social democrats. Down with the imperialist bloc. Long live the people. All power to the people, liberation to all oppressed nations, and the working class firmly in solidarity with the anti-imperialist bloc against these disgusting terrorist nations and governments and all of their parties. All right. I get passionate sometimes. I'll go ahead and hide that. So I was getting back to my labor update. So I got into this local job. I found out the insurance was way higher than it needed to be. And I got into it right about the time the retail Christmas rush started. And they were working me 6 days a week, 13-hour days. 80, I almost said 72, 80 something hours, close to 80 hours. I can't really do math. I'm a little bit out of it. I got off a shorter shift today. But anyways, so they start me right on the Christmas rush. I get into it, hit the ground running, rolling. And then I work the first 4 months. Money's decent. I'm working my ass off for it though. And then about a month in, my health insurance hits. Paycheck goes way down. I'm like, okay, this is working. I can pay the bills. And then and I was told that after the Christmas rush, they were going to scale back my work a little bit. All right. I'm cool with that. I mean, it's going to lower it. Health insurance really expensive. Benefits aren't that good. I'm going to lose a bit of earning opportunity. Maybe I'll get more time with my family. At least the mortgage gets paid. We got health insurance. Things are good. Well, I just got told today. I worked today on Christmas Eve. And I was just told on Christmas Eve that they are going to basically half my pay, more than half my pay, which after that expensive health insurance is almost nothing. That's not enough to keep the lights on. That's not enough to pay my mortgage. Basically, I have been forcibly laid off. I'm going to have to find another job. I was told when I came in, this was permanent work. And now I've been told essentially that I am not able to make enough for that job to provide for my family. And it's a big hit. And now it's fucking Christmas Eve. I got to wait 2 weeks. I got to deal with the little bullshit work they got, whatever. I think they're making me wait on the yard a few hours for some stuff. And I'm just fucking pissed. I'm depressed. Capitalist system beat me down, tore me up, used me, lied to me, used me, tore me up, and threw me away when they didn't need it. I recommend The Malady we definitely need by Olgan. Read no, that's the first chapter. The name of the book is Why Communism by Olgan. Talks about being laid off, put out into the street. I mean, if you're going to get somebody into communism that just needs to start learning about communism, have them read the very first chapter of Why Communism by Olgan. Great book. I've read it here before. I recommend that. And that's essentially what happened to me. It wasn't a complete layoff, but it was enough of a work short slowdown where I'm going to have to find other employment. Might have to go in savings and go back, but it's fucked up. Shout out to Anthony Penza, fellow driver. I believe a lot of trucking companies really are fucking shady. My dad would always tell me about all the companies he drove for. So basically, my pay's been done to my health insurance is really high. My pay's been gone too low that I'm forced to find another job. And they kept telling me, oh, you're still going to make decent money, but the work schedule is going to go down a little slower. They were telling me the whole time I was working those month and a half. And I was working that month and a half, and I was thinking, okay, it's really bad now, but I'm making decent money, and the schedule's going to go down. Everything's going to be all right after Christmas. Then Christmas Eve, they tell me, you're not going to have enough to provide for your family with this job. Go out and find another fucking job, essentially. I know and if I can't find another local job, I'm going to be forced to be away from my family. I mean, trucking's the only trade I have. Go ahead and get into college debt is a horrible perspective. I actually recommend trades. Trades are a much easier way to start making money. I recommend trades. There's a lot of people that got degrees I know, and I'm not against people going to college. That's cool. I was in there. I dropped out of it. But usually a trade is a firm way to make decent money. For regular folks to make decent money. And a lot of these industries, after they destroyed the Communist Party, 1930s and 40s, the Communist Party, the mass Communist Party pushed in the time of a crisis, pushed Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Instead of going into fascism like they did in Germany to maintain capitalism, they implemented major elements of social democracy in the United States through the President Roosevelt at the behest, actually at the pressure of a mass communist party and competition with the Soviet Union at the time. Ever since the collapse of first, and then you have the destruction of the Communist Party with the McCarthy era. Then in the 60s and 70s, you have the destruction of the labor unions. Probably the last bit of labor unionism was Nixon's hard hats, which were somewhat reactionary and imperialist. They were maintaining a labor aristocracy. Nixon was maintaining a labor aristocracy. But it was working people having wages. We don't even got that anymore. They took that shit away. They put Hoffa up on, I'm a truck driver and go for the Hoffa was kind of in with the mob, doing some shady shit. And they took him out of power on corruption charges. But the motherfucker they put in there was more corrupt than Hoffa. It was just to destroy workers' power. The attacks on Jimmy Hoffa were just attacks to destroy workers' power. You notice how I like all these people that normal liberals don't like? I like Iran. I like Jimmy Hoffa. I like these. You know what I am concerned with? You know my number one concern? Workers' power and oppressed nations' power. All the problems that are caused in this world are because of one reason. The entire reason of politics is that these monopoly capitalist cartels have all the power and we have none. So at the end of my broadcast, I say all power to the people, power to the workers, power to the oppressed nations, Chicano power, black power, workers' power. Power is the only way to change things. Whenever you attempt to change the superstructure and not the base, you will get nowhere. And that is what the illusions of working in the Democratic Party is. build workers' power. In the fight to build workers' power, use this as a school for socialism and revolution. Even if I'm in the South, where the legacy of slavery has basically stopped the union movement from ever coming here. It did come here. 1940s, sometimes in the 50s, there was communist organizers that organized the first, some of the first interracial unions in the South. And it was people from this legacy that taught me scientific socialism. I am the legacy and the product of the Communist Party that organized black and white workers in the South to fight for better wages and workers' power. That is who I am. That is my legacy. That is my heritage. I am proud to stand for that. I am of, for, and by the working class, firmly in solidarity with the oppressed nations within the belly of the beast and the oppressed nations around the world, and against the enemy of imperialism, main enemy we face today. If you start looking into this is what the media companies do. This is what the propaganda machine does. When it comes to their power, when it comes to the power of the imperialists, they look at them with a appeal to authority. Oh, they're in power. They must be doing something right. The United States has a successful economy. Its power is dignified and justified. Oh, look, in the United States, it is a zone of LGBT rights and trans rights and a beacon of democracy. Well, how did they get these professors, train all these professors, give all these professors adequate resources, give them tenure and decent jobs? Working class people are paying for that with interest on student loans, mind you. And a lot of this is coming from and a lot of these universities and academics are funded by the bourgeois class. And they use any form of social issue, of identity issue, that doesn't have to do with the question of national oppression, that doesn't have to do with the question of class oppression. They will use that in any way to paint themselves as the promoters of freedom and democracy and equality and justice. That is what these bourgeois, liberal elite, NPR motherfuckers do. And they use that as simply propaganda to justify these endless unjust wars, to maintain the most oppressive, disgusting system that has ever existed. They claim to support women's rights, why they support warlords who are putting acid on women who don't go along with the warlords regime in Afghanistan. They act like they support gay rights when they support Saudi Arabia, which beheads gay people. So it's my understanding that the liberal elites will apply the appeal to authority to themselves, and they will apply a utopian anarchist standard of morality to everyone else. So if that entity goes against their power, they have a reason to subjugate them. They have a reason to invade them. They're going to invade motherfuckers for human rights. Some fucking bullshit. And the stability, and think about democratic rights. Democratic rights. You know what democratic rights are? Democratic rights exist in proportion to what? In proportion to stability. The more stable a country is, the more democratic rights a country can have. So the imperialist bloc, which steals from all over the world, which bourgeoisie is happy, and maybe a little few crumbs to kick down occasionally, is ultra stable. And they can have democratic rights and they can have a free press. When you have governments with limited power that are constantly under assault by the United States, you have to put a clamp down on human rights. You have to put a clamp down on democracy to maintain stability. If you do not have law and stability, you have absolute chaos, destruction, and rape, and absolutely all kinds of horrible things. That's what's necessary. And a lot of revolutionary governments, anybody that stands against the United States, they're immediately attacked. Doesn't matter how democratic they are. Like Venezuela and Bolivia are far more democratic than the United States, but they're accused of being undemocratic. And then they carry out sanctions that starve people. And then U.S. companies that sell them food do sabotage that starves people. And then after starving people, they look how horrible socialism is. Those people are starving when it's the sanctions that did that starving of those people. This is the system of imperialism. It is clear and easy to see with the understanding of scientific socialism. And not only can we understand it, we can feel it with a spiritual energy and wrath that connects us as human beings, that pushes us to do the right thing. And the right thing is to stand up and fight against the imperialist system. The right thing is to stand in solidarity with the people of the world that are being oppressed by the very same government that is denying us wages, denying us health care. That is the right and moral thing to do, and there is no better feeling than being on the right side of history and being a whole human being. Aww. Actually, the name of the show today was Do Not Concede History. Do not concede history. Use it to build your dreams. What I mean by do not concede history, I'm talking about the repressed history. The repressed history of resistance that has worked. I'm talking about the slave revolts. I'm talking about what John Brown really stood for. I'm talking about Harriet Tubman. I'm talking about the unions in the South that built workers' power, formed the first integrated unions that I am the legacy, and my understanding is the legacy of. That is the hidden history. I'm talking about the resistance of the Chicano nation standing up against oppression. And I'm also talking about the history of the Soviet Union. And I'm talking about the achievements made by the Soviet Union. The vast, widespread, lingering achievements of the Soviet Union led by Stalin. So let's talk about the widespread achievements of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was the first socialist revolution in human history. Just the fact that they attempted it, let alone succeeded, just the fact they attempted it is a monumental step in the right direction towards justice and equality. Not only they attempted, but they succeeded. The Soviet Union took the most backwards country in Europe and industrialized to a global superpower within a few decades, defeated the Nazis, and then rebuilt it again. And they did it through the superior system of socialism. You turn the music off? That's how they did it. And they use Stalin is a very important figure because of the specific type of socialism that the Soviet Union used. They used this type of strongman socialism where Stalin would tour the country. And if you were the hardest worker, you'd have a reward. It was kind of like a reward system. And that worked for a good amount of time, and it helped them do. Eventually, that became unstable, and it needed to evolve, and it didn't. So it fell. But in that time period, when it succeeded, the United States was in a Great Depression. The Soviet Union was booming. And these are people that never had, that had to deal with every few years they would have a famine. Below subsistence agriculture, backwards, horrible lives, to living in a modern industrialized society within a few decades. And it was socialism. It was the strength of planning the economy and using the economy and the resources for the people's interests. And not only did they raise people out of poverty in the Soviet Union and famines, the Communist International inspired people all over the world, inspired people to rise up and resist imperialism, inspired those unions that integrated the South, and which legacy trained me in scientific socialism. The international, the communists in the United States that pushed Roosevelt are a direct result of the success of the Soviet Union and Stalin, who led it. And this continual attack on Stalin from the establishment. A lot of people say, why do you keep talking about Stalin? Why do you keep bringing up the Stalin-Trotsky debate? That has nothing to do with what's going on now. Well, go out in society and talk with the workers, talk with the people, talk to academics. I am inspired by the Soviet Union and what they did, and I would like to build workers' power. Oh, no, you can't be inspired by Stalin. He killed all these people, and he did all these horrible things, and he's homophobic, and you should completely reject him, and we need a type of socialism that's actually a good type of socialism, and socialism has failed everywhere it's ever happened. What kind of bullshit is that? How the hell are we supposed to get anywhere if we have this huge example of when socialism was an amazing force for justice and peace and prosperity and growth all over the world, and we're not allowed to fucking mention it because they have torn its name, because it was such a threat, because the legacy and the inspiration of Stalin and the Soviet Union was such a threat to the bourgeoisie. They had to suppress it. They had to lie about it. They had to put it down. And that's why in academic culture, brother and comrade Grover Furr, who has been dispelling the myths of the bourgeois academics, a man with a soul who's doing the right thing. If you ask Grover Furr why he does what he does, he talked about how it being in the Vietnam protest, and about how you can't support the Viet Cong because they're called communists, and communists killed a bunch of people. He's like, holy fuck, I got to research that. And out of the drive for truth, the drive for justice, and the drive for understanding, he stood up against his other academic colleagues who have been bought off. And he found out the truth about the Soviet Union, about how Khrushchev lied, about how Trotsky was a traitor. And it's the same academic media system that destroyed the legacy and piled a bunch of dirt on Stalin's grave. It's the same ones that are attacking the current anti-imperialist countries today. It's the same force that said that Gaddafi was giving his soldiers Viagra to rape people. Turns out that was a complete and utter lie. They manipulated Obama to destroy the most prosperous country in Africa, created other chaos, and a slave train has returned to Africa. Do not concede history. The image and the name of Stalin and the power of the Soviet Union should put pride and inspiration in the heart of every real communist. We will not concede history. We will not let you attack the anti-imperialist countries. We will not let you attack China. We will not let you attack Iran. We will not let you attack Venezuela. These are our comrades. These are our inspiration. This is the way forward. We will use this to build our dreams of a better future and a better tomorrow. Thank you, comrades. Happy Christmas Eve. Well wishes to you and your families. All power to the people.